front end of a Vickers Viscount. A good old Bedford fire truck. And this is a Vampire, I think it's a T11. And over there is another Meteor, somewhat disassembled. This particular example, this is the Jet Provost. There's a lovely little engine starter under there. 4 mighty Olympus jet engines in there. Well, hi folks, welcome to the Old Classic Car channel. Today, a short video with a bit of a difference. Today I find myself in the East Midlands, specifically the East Midlands Aeropark. This is an aero museum right next to East Midlands Airport, which is just over the way there. This is a place I have been to in the past, but not for quite a few years. So I thought, well, as I was passing by, we'll go and have a quick look. We're not far from Donington Park, that's just a mile or so behind me. But today, it is the Aeropark, which is the focus of my attentions. There are some fantastic old aircraft in here. So if, like me, you like a little bit of everything when it comes to old transport, preserved transportation, well, hopefully you'll find something in this video of interest. So let's go and amble inside and see what we can see. Oh yes, I think this is going to be an enjoyable trip. £5 and we're in. Well, I say we, I'm flying solo today. My youthful assistant couldn't be with me today. But yeah, so quite a few years since I last visited here. This is a Jaguar, the Sepicat Jaguar. I'm not sure if there's any of these still flying anymore. I know there are 1 or 2 of these down at the museum at RAF Cosford. But yeah, what a great day. I can hear cars at Donington Park. There must be a test day going on. I think I can hear them over my shoulder. I know the focus of this video is old aircraft and the gems that are on display here at the East Midlands Aeropark. Wow, I'm guessing most of these probably flew in here. We have actually got spectator banking over here, and you can watch the comings and goings at the main airport itself, which is quite handy. You get a lot of freight cargo aircraft going in and out of East Midlands. They've got a DHL something over there. But yes, let's have a look at these wonderful old aircraft here. What's this one here? I think this is this the Varsity? I think this is a Varsity. There was the Viking and the Varsity, which were both fairly similar. So we'll go around and see if there's an information board. Anyway, let's not get distracted with the modern stuff. We are here for old aeroplanes, and here, the front end of a Vickers Viscount. These were built at the Vickers factory that used to be based down at Brooklands. Yes, the same Brooklands, which is famous really for the motor racing circuit, the banked motor racing circuit, but for many, many years, the Vickers Aircraft Company were based out of there as well. Aircraft such as this wonderful old Viscount were built there. I so well remember Viscounts flying in and out of Manchester when I was a plane spotter in my youth. And there we've got the front end of the Vickers Vanguard. Or it could be the Merchantman, which was the cargo version, if I remember correctly. I think the cockpits were the same though. And continuing with the Vickers theme, obviously Viscount, Vanguard. Here we have the forward fuselage of the wonderful VC-10, the Vickers VC-10. There were 2 main versions of these operated in civilian hands. There was the standard and there was the Super VC-10. The RAF had quite a few of them as well. This is in the livery of the Royal Air Force. Many of the British Airways Super VC-10s were converted into tankers back in the 1980s, and they operated for many, many years. Steps here remind us that VC-10s operated out of RAF Bryce Norton. I think the cockpit's closed today. Welcome to Royal Air Force Bryce Norton. Yeah, air refuelling, air transport, air refuelling and military parachuting. Someone was just asking what the probe on the front there is, and that is for in-flight refuelling. So this could have been topped up while it was flying along, which is pretty incredible when you think about it. So let's carry on around here. The airpark goes all the way over there, but we'll sort of stick with the perimeter for now. XV108, the original registration number of this particular VC10. There's not so many of these left now. There is a complete one down at Brooklands, and there's also a big chunk of fuselage of G-ARVM, which was a British Airways standard VC10 that used to be displayed down at RAF Cosford. Yeah. Incredible aircraft, the VC10s. Had a huge T-tail, twin engines per side. Really, really advanced aircraft. A beautiful aircraft to fly in by all accounts. You've got some of the engine cowlings at the back there, and indeed one of the engines. You can just about see that over there. There's a twin set of cowlings. It would have had one of those each side. Yeah, so 2 engines per side next to a huge T-tail, which would have been somewhere about there. And this is the English Electric Lightning. Now this was an incredible aircraft. For years, for decades, I think it was the fastest accelerating aircraft in a vertical climb. And these were something else. 2 huge engines, one on top of the other, and the pilot sat just on top of them really. Very complex aircraft to keep working. It took a huge amount of maintenance to keep them airworthy, even when they were current. And they would get through fuel like crazy. They often used to have big tanks under either wing under there, just to give them a bit of extra range, because they were notorious for being thirsty old things, these were, but spectacular as well. Here's a bit of the backstory of the Lightning. Britain's first true supersonic fighter aircraft, able to attain Mach 2 in level flight. A normally laden F2 took less than 150 seconds to reach 40,000 feet from brakes off. That's incredible. Next to the Lightning, we have a pair of Hawker Hunters. Stunning aircraft as well. If I had room in the garden, I would definitely try and get hold of one of these to put in there. They are just beautiful. That's a 2-seater over there, slightly longer nose, bigger cockpit. You can see that, compare that to that. They're both really stunning looking aircraft, I think. Yeah, proper 1950s jet. There were so many aircraft manufacturers here in Britain in the 1950s. All gone now. Here's the history of this one. Yeah, first flew 3rd of March 1958. The helicopter over there is the Gazelle, very distinctive because the rotor is sort of built in to the tail section. In the out of bounds area I can see something being worked upon. I think it is a Buccaneer, possibly, with the nose cone tilted back, hinged back, but the air intake up there looks very Buccaneer to me, the Blackburn Buccaneer. Anyway, here is a bit of road vehicle content. The good old Bedford fire truck. Very, very similar really to the Bedford Green Goddesses, which you usually see in green. This is a very similar kind of vehicle, presumably an airfield fire truck. I wonder where this came from. It says Royal Air Force Fire and Rescue down the side. I'm not entirely sure where this operated. We are inside one of the buildings now, and lots of aircraft parts. The Armstrong Siddeley Cheetah radial engine, 7-cylinder air-cooled radial engine producing 375 horsepower, introduced in 1935. And about 37,500 units were produced until 1948. Another aircraft engine along here, tail sections, bits of aircraft. That's from a jet Provost. Wow, gotta love these museums. Something everywhere you look. This is a front end of, well, it's either a vampire or maybe a Venom, sea Venom. I'm guessing possibly sea Venom, looking at the colour scheme. I promise I haven't looked on this. Let's have a look. It is a sea Venom. Sea Venom FAW22. When I was a kid, Dad was involved with an aircraft preservation group, and they had a Vampire T11, which was very, very similar to the Venom. They had it stored on a farm, and every now and again I get the chance to go and play in the cockpit of this old Vampire T11, and this reminds me of that a great deal. That would have been in the early 1980s, I would have thought. So originally this would have had twin booms coming out of the back, single engine in the centre. A few goodies for sale. I'll have a look round here later. More aircraft engines here. The Armstrong Siddeley Adder. It's an early British turbojet engine developed by Armstrong Siddeley. First run November 1948. There's an early sort of instructional cockpit. This was like a very sort of primitive early doors flight training, like a simulator type thing. And this is the kind of thing where new to be pilots, this is what they would cut their teeth in initially, just to give them an idea of what the controls within the cockpit would actually do. And yes, the Link Trainer. If you get the chance to visit any of the museums that feature in these videos, or even if they don't feature in these videos, if you see a train museum, a car museum, aircraft museum, try and pop in if you can and just help support, because I mean these places rely on volunteers and the income from paying visitors, and yeah, it just keeps the lights on. So if you see a place like this, do your best to try and visit, please. Over here we have a de Havilland Chipmunk, minus wings. These were, for many years, the mainstay of the sort of the training fleet, the training arm of the Royal Air Force, if you like. Occasionally we see a Chipmunk down at what was RAF Slape down in Shropshire. We try and get down there whenever we can, go and have a cup of tea. You get some fantastic old aircraft flying in and out of there, and like I say, occasionally you do see a Chipmunk over there. And over here on a slightly damp and boggy part of the Aeropark land is a de Havilland Dove. Over here we have the Handley Page Jetstream. This one in RAF colours, the HP 137 Jetstream. This one made its first flight October 1975. It's been here since March 2018. De Havilland over there, minus a few important parts. Let's carry on along here. And I was mentioning the vampires earlier on, and this is a vampire. I think it's a T11, have slightly different cockpits compared to the other variant, the F8, was it, I think? Yeah, this is a T11, identical. Could even be this one. Very, very similar to the one that I used to play in like 40 or so years ago. So it's really cool to see that one here. And like the de Havilland Mosquito that was built in the Second World War, the main body tub here, this is wood. Incredibly, just like the Mosquito was, the Wooden Wonder, as that was called in the Second World War. Like I say, twin tails, just like that Venom cockpit, that's what I was talking about. You can see the two tails out the back there with a big central engine, the Goblin engine. Let's see what we can find out about this one. Yeah, Vampire T11. This one was constructed as a T11 in 1954, struck off charge in 1967, went to the Lincolnshire Aviation Museum, then to Long Marston, and then it came here in 2009. Wow. Yeah, I've got a real soft spot for that. Alongside the Vampire we have this, the Gloucester Meteor. No prizes for guessing what this is. We'll have a closer look at this after. And over there is another Meteor, somewhat disassembled. This particular example, I'm not sure whether it's going together or coming apart. Next to the disassembled Meteor we have this, the magnificent Nimrod, originally Hawker Siddeley, later BAE, and based on the old de Havilland Comet. They took the Comet and reworked it significantly to create the Nimrod. And if you look closely, the engines are set into fairings built in to the wing, just like the de Havilland Comet, which was the first commercial jet airliner developed and first flew in the early 1950s, and that is what this is based on. If you look at the fuselage, that top bit is Comet, and then it's sort of got this extra bit below. But yeah, that's where that came from. These were developed at Woodford, which is now home to, well, lots and lots of new houses, but also the Avro Heritage Museum, where there is a cockpit section of a Nimrod on display. Actually, we've got a better view over this side, so you can really see the Comet ancestry. The cockpit bit there is pure Comet. This is added on afterwards. And like I say, the air intakes over there. The early Comets had much smaller air intakes compared to that. Yeah, quite an advanced maritime reconnaissance aircraft this was. I guess this kind of took over from the old Shackletons, the Avro Shackletons. Yeah, incredible aircraft, really. Right, so let's keep going down here. We've got an old fire tender here. What an incredible thing this is. I wonder if this came from East Midlands Airport, which is just over my shoulder. But there is probably, certainly the biggest aircraft here today, XM575, the Avro Vulcan B2. Originally the Vulcan was part of the V-Force, the Cold War nuclear deterrent. There was 3 aircraft that formed the V-Force. There was this, the Avro Vulcan, the Handley Page Victor, and the Vickers Valiant. The Victor was made down at Radlett. This was made at Woodford. Well, it's assembled at Woodford. A lot of the sub-assemblies were actually built up at Chadderton, and they were brought by road overnight down to Woodford, where all the Vulcans were assembled, and they all flew out from there. And happily, there is a complete example of the Avro Vulcan down at Avro Heritage Museum. So if you haven't checked that place out, go and pop in there as well, because it is a splendid place. I've done a few videos there of some of the classic car meetings they have, and it is all jolly, jolly splendid indeed. Yeah, the B2, this was a development of the original Vulcan, the B1. The B1 had a much straighter leading edge. If you looked at it in profile, it looked like a real triangle. This has a very distinctive kink in the leading edge, which you can see there. That's the main differential, I think, visually, if you're comparing the earlier B1 with the B2. But if you go to a museum, if you see a Vulcan, it is a B2, because there are no B1s left, sadly. I vaguely remember there was a B1 parked up for many years around the back of the hangars down at Cosford, and that one got chopped up, sadly. Anyway, let's carry on looking around some of the rest of the aircraft here. Now, what is this? I'm going to have to check the information board on this, because I'm not too sure. It could be a piston Provost, that's my guess. Or the Percival Provost. I'm a little bit rusty on this kind of thing, so you'll have to bear with me a second. The Percival Provost. If Dad was with me, he would have known this. So this one first flew in August of 1954. Went to Gatwick Air Museum in 1999 and delivered here September 2013. So it's been here 11 years now. What a great little aeroplane that is. Yeah, some lovely stuff over here. A Beach Beagle over there on the covers. Another Vampire T11. Let's have a look at the history of this one. Let's see if it was this one that I used to play in as an ankle biter. This one was built in 1954, stored at RAF St Athan. It should be noted here, the Vampire has a wooden pod where the pilot sits. It was constructed in a similar way to the famous de Havilland Mosquito. XD, the cockpit from XD 534. That number rings a bell. I wonder if that's the one I remember. Could be. Yeah, what a great thing. I can hear something taking off. It's a very moody sky today, and here we have another example of the fabulous Hawker Hunter. So we've got the Percival Provost over there, and here we have an early jet Provost, and this was kind of an evolution of the propeller aeroplane. If you look and compare, the tails are very similar shape. Obviously everything else has been reworked, but yes, this is the jet Provost. There's a lovely little engine starter under there, very nice. So this was also a training aircraft. This was a jet trainer as used by the Royal Air Force for many years. The final evolution of these was the BAC Strike Master. Every now and again we get one of those fly over the house, you hear it sort of whistling its way over, it sounds like nothing else. Yeah, and behind it, towering over it, the tin triangle itself, the magnificent Avro Vulcan, which, like I say, the Nimrod, they were built over at Woodford. Same for this, the magnificent Vulcan. What an incredible aircraft that is. I just think these are just phenomenal to watch at air shows. These performing was just unforgettable. If you check out videos of XH558, which was the last airworthy Vulcan until just a few years ago before it was pensioned off, the sound and the spectacle, the fact that this was a bomber, a nuclear bomber that could fly and manoeuvre the way it did, just beggars belief. It was just incredible, really, considering that this was built just a few years after aircraft such as the Avro Lancaster and the Avro Lincoln, which came out of the same factory just a few years later. They came up with this 4 mighty Olympus jet engines in there, a development of which will end up in the Concorde. Yeah, truly spectacular aircraft. One interesting little feature of these is that pod under there with the little window when it was originally designed. That was designed to be the bomb aimer's position, and that's where he would peer out of when on a bombing run. It was never actually used for that purpose, but by the time it was no longer required, the production was so far down the line that it would have taken too big a redesign to actually remove it again, so it simply remained. Yeah, that's quite a cool thing, but just, you know, just a spectacular, incredible aeroplane. Over there is the English Electric Lightning that we were looking at a few minutes ago. And over here, from the same factory, we have this, the English Electric Canberra. Quite a large aircraft this was. Radar gear and that funny looking nose. They didn't all have that front end on them. Some of these were used for photo reconnaissance. Yeah, let's see what the information board tells us about that beauty. English Electric Canberra B2/T17, delivered August 1953. Operated out of Tengai in Singapore, active service in Malaya, converted to a T-17 in 1962. Struck off charge December 1987, used as an instructional airframe, and it was bought for display at the Aeropark. This helicopter here is the Westland Sea King. These are often used in search and rescue roles. The window is open, get a bit of air around it. Let's have a look at this one. ZD477, withdrawn from service in 2004 and stored at Gosport. 2013 it's moved to Bruntingthorpe, stayed there till 2018. Underwent considerable restoration in 2020. And this magnificent old freighter, currently having a bit of a touch-up, is the Armstrong Whitworth Argosy freight aircraft. This one first flew in 1960, the same year that RA40 was built, as it happens. For quite a long time actually operated out of East Midlands, just over the way there. I think these are just wonderful, these big old prop jobs, you know, just such characterful things, and they survive in such tiny numbers. So whenever I see sort of like one of these big post-war aircraft, whether it's an airliner or indeed a freighter, as is the case here, I'm always going to make a beeline for it. I think oftentimes the military aircraft get all the glamour, but these are sort of the real workhorses of the aviation industry, and yeah, it's just such a treat to see that this one is being so well looked after over here at East Midlands Aeropark. Have a quick read up on the history of this one. The Aeropark Argosy G-BEOZ. First took to the air in December 1960, flew for Universal Airlines in the USA. In the early 80s it began to operate for Airbridge Carriers, ABC, based here at East Midlands Airport. They also used to operate the Merchantman, which was a commercial version of the Vickers Vanguard. This was donated to East Midlands Aeropark by Airbridge Carriers in 1987. What a beauty that is. There's a bit of the history of the type. Pause the video if you want to have a quick read of that. Yeah, what a treat to see that. What a fantastic old thing. Now here's one I've never heard of before. It says the Britten Sheriff twin tail job. I've never ever seen one of those before. Let's see if the information board gives us a few more clues. Let's have a look over here. Certainly a very unusual aircraft. It was a light aircraft developed on the Isle of Wight in 1976 by Britten Aviation Technical Services at Sandown, but never went into production. A low wing cantilever monoplane with twin tails and an engine on each wing. Production was stopped on the death of the designer John Britten in 1977. This is the prototype aircraft that was never fully completed. Wow, so that's it. That's the only one you're going to see. So a unique aircraft. Wow. Yes, this is indeed a Vickers Varsity. There was also the Viking, I think that was a tail dragger, if I remember correctly, whereas this one has the nose undercarriage. The Vickers Varsity T1, here we go. The Varsity is a contemporary of the Vickers Viking airliner and the Valletta military transport. Right, so that's clarified that. This one was based at RAF Swindon in the early 1950s. Yeah. What a lovely old thing that is. Very, very nice. Again, built by Vickers. Anyway, I think that probably rounds out this particular video on my visit to the East Midlands Aeropark, October 2024. Thank you so much for watching this particular video. It's been a real treat to revisit this aircraft museum after such a long break. Bit of a different video for the channel, but I hope you don't mind. Please leave a like, comment, that kind of thing. Subscribe if you haven't already, and please keep an eye on the channel because there are loads more updates, loads more videos due very, very soon. So bye for now.